Hello guys, welcome back or welcome if you're new. It's Christian from Emotions in Wine. So today the long-awaited tasting of the Grk was very successful. 2 videos, by the way, the links below. One was generic, one was specific beer visit, and I promised a tasting of 3 wines that we talked about. There are another 2 very relevant, but for one or the other reason I didn't get them or pricey. So in the end, I focused on these 3. But altogether, horizontal, something interesting to put them together. Of course, I will not do ratings as usual. You know, I don't like for spread. But of course, I will express a bit what I prefer more or less. So we have Fides Grk 24, Bire Grk 24, and Sabulum Grk 24. Alcohol, they are all around 13.5 maximum. Is all from Lumbarda village in Korčula island in Dalmatia, South Dalmatia to be precise. So Lumbarda is, as said before, in that small corner that is the original place of this grape, which is a very tiny production. For all the introduction, I refer you to the first video during the trip because there I explain all well in details. Now just a brief intro. So originally from there is over 2,000 years around traces. Some said Greeks, so Grk from Greek, brought it there, but DNA didn't prove it. Others say Grk in Croatian means bitter, which was a bitter characteristic in the old days, bitter and now less and less with the modern winemaking. So it's not clear the reason. Nowadays you find it a bit in the middle of the island where Poship, the other most famous white grape, is planted. 3-4 wineries nowadays there, even good quality. And lately also on Pelješac Peninsula, where Plavasmali is the king, there is also a bit there. But Lumbarda is really its perfect terroir. For whatever reason, nature decided, basically. We will repeat a bit what is special in Lumbarda. So Prephyloxera, because it's the only sandy area of the whole island, and there are not many sandy places in the Dalmatia. There is this sandy beach, and near the beach there are most of the vineyards, so around the village. Then you have other locations. We will see better later in details. So Prephyloxera for that reason. Nowadays some use the American root because they said it's stronger against diseases and things. And there are about 10-12 wineries only in Lumbarda, then of course some others, but in this area, which is protected designation nowadays, so they made a great move to protect really the original place. So very tiny, it's only 100 hectares in total. And even considering that they built a bit of the fora vineyards, means outside on the seaside, so on the slopes, as you can see, rocky, so there is no sand at all, and it is steep, rocky, and higher altitude, while most of the vineyards are flat, really on sea level, on the sandy, and a bit also up of the village, where there is also red soil, terra rossa, so red clay. So they have, but majority is on the sandy there, and majority of the wineries have only vineyards there. Bire was the first, or one of the 2 first. They have bigger size, about 40,000 bottles. They have different locations, but majority are more recent. So they have smaller plots. They make a few thousand bottles. Some really don't have anything, no website, nothing. Even the case of the 2 today, only Facebook page and that's it. So it's really still a micro concept, but becoming more and more relevant. The fact that the views of the videos were quite good means also something. There is more interest, at least because of many tourists going there. So I start to pour in the Burgundy glasses, as you see, because they are serious wines, honestly, and they can breathe more in a larger glass anyway. Of course, they are quite different from last summer. You see already the colors maybe tend to be a bit more goldish. All now is more than 1 year of age. of the wines, and they start to evolve a bit compared to in the summer. There was a lot of freshness and minerality, some sapidity. It's very close to the sea. There were various differences. We will see how it is now and how they differ one to the other. So Fides, the first is the lowest alcohol, 13, and was the very vibrant fresh. So the easiest, let's say. As said, already turned into gold, clearly. Is one of the 1 or 2% of global grapes with only female flower, which cannot pollinate itself. So there is need of another grape in the rows, 10-20%, but they need to alternate. And majority use Plavathmali, while we will see Sabulum, the last one, is using Poship for the pollination. So some of them told me that even that makes a difference in the final result of the wine, besides harvesting time, winemaking, and everything. It's already around some time, because I sold vintages from 7-8 years ago, so about 10 years for sure, but very tiny. There is no other info available. Should be only on the sandy near the village, and I guess is doing early harvest because of that vibrancy and freshness, and if does, only few hours short of maceration. So it's very fruity now, less citrusy, more yellow fruit, but delicate, not impactful, not tropical, honestly. There is a touch of herbal, which is quite typical of Grk and also Poship, some Mediterranean herbs. Elegant, refined, I would say. Yet, my memory didn't change that much. Of course, it's a bit rounder, less vibrant, at least on the nose so far. The mineral is present, but not that evident. It's mostly fruit and herbal. Yeah, it's a bit rounder also on the palate, but still good freshness. Remember, the acidity is naturally high. This is the big advantage of both Poship and Grk and in Korčula, even with the whole naturally high acidity, so they can have a good aging potential. With Bire, we saw it in the video. I mentioned that. I tried a bit older. It was changing and outstanding. So they have that potential. Then, of course, depends on every winery's also the age of the vines. So still good freshness, is dry, but a bit rounder than last summer. Good depth, perfect aperitif, perfect with seafood dishes, light, not saucy. I will do 2 tries each and then a final round afterwards. So far, not showing much more. They were open just briefly before. Yeah, very pleasant. Leave a touch of bitter in the end, but very, very minimal, and a touch of herbs in the back. So perfect even to dry up if you have the food, but great aperitif. 13 alcohol is not super long, but it's very pleasant, as I said already, over the summer. So it's very nice expression. It's not one of the most famous, but apparently is one of the best ones. So Bire, the most famous winery there, they have, as hinted, all the locations. So on the sandy, on the Terra Rossa, and a big vineyard, also the Fora, on the steep rocky. Even if they made the terraces, so it's not steep, the terrain, they do a blend of the separate areas that are vinified separately. So that helps a lot in the process. It's sort of cuvée in a way, to keep a standard year by year, making a bit differently the vinification of every plot, harvesting a bit earlier here, a bit later there. So with the time, they got the fine tuning, so it's very interesting, the final result, especially with the complexity. Yeah, it's more refined, more complexity immediately, you see. Still a touch of citrusy, other yellow fruit but delicate. Herbal notes, the minerality pronounced. They have a bit older vineyards also. That is an advantage because they have all 20 plus years. So for sure that helps with the roots digging deeper to give a bit more depth. Yeah, longer, a bit more structure. This is 13.5 alcohol actually. So it has a bit more oily bit also in a way. It's starting to turn a bit in some characters. Dry, fresh, staying there. So very nice, very nice. Aperitif also, but of course this is even more food friendly, even something more, something richer is a bit more than the other. And more things coming out. I drank 23 vintage after 1 year and a half or so, and it turned quite a bit, even on Riesling, even Petronos. And now we are starting to go in that direction. It's still early, because now it's just a bit more than a year, but start to move in that direction. So the potential for the aging of these wines is very interesting. Yeah, and very refined, very refined. Now it's getting really top. Yeah, great depth, great depth. A touch of sweet fruit, so rebalance a bit, even that touch of bitter and the acidity. Less mineral, in a way, the minerality you smell more than you taste. On the palate, there is a lot. You have more the acidity, the herbal, the bittery, these other things. Mineral, just a hint. Great. And in a great drinking window starting now to be. Sabulum. Very interesting. They are with the property near the sandy beach, just up the slope, as you can see. They built a very nice reception is a wine bar, basically, where they sell almost everything. I think they do 5,000 to 7,000 per year. Few wines, because they have also post-ship rosé. So they use the post-ship for the pollination, so different from the others. I mentioned the time his style a bit richer, but first impression on the nose, very interesting. I may revise my first impression from the summer. So this is 13.3 alcohol. I assume that he harvests a bit later. The color are all the same as hinted before. Maybe this is a touch more goldish than the others. You have a touch of tropical fruit, but also citrusy, still quite pronounced, but even a touch of tropical, but not too impactful, it's still delicate. The citrusy, even mandarin, I would say. And a touch of herbal, good mineral also. So it's more interesting than I remember from the summer. Good complexity. Yeah, it's a bit richer here. So I think he harvests a bit later. There is the post-ship factor, which may have a bit of influence. I guess maybe short maceration also. So it's a bit rounder on the palate. Structure, similar to beer, let's say, but a bit rounder. So probably missing a touch of acidity. Is very pleasant, good length. I would say more attractive nose than palate. Good complexity on the nose, actually. Yeah, all this citrusy, some tropical touch, herbal, mineral. It's dry, but a bit rounder, less acidity as hinted. Even the minerality is less evident. So this looks a bit riper on the palate. There is not that 100% correspondence between nose and palate. You have a bit of citrusy, but more round fruit, tropical, and a hint of herbal here. So it's not pretty. So that's why I prefer the nose than the palate, but very nice and better than in the summer. Then is also the other point that good wines need some time in the bottle. Of course, you appreciate the freshness, easy to drink, especially in summer with a hot, but a good wine needs at least a year of bottle. Nothing to do. Final round. This one was mentioned in the summer as the most vibrant and the most surprising discovery. And I would say that it's still remaining more on that trend, let's say, less complex, less evolution, let's say. So I guess the winners are not that old, but very nice, very vertical, very elegant. Yeah, not much change. So good complexity, refined, very pleasant, less body, so easier to drink, but nice dryness, freshness, not super long. So it's a bit easier than the others in every mean, but very nice. Only the price is not easy because in the end this was the most expensive of the three because it's above 30, while okay, Bire in the winery, but if you buy in the shops it's also more around 30, but still less than Fides, while Sabulum in the cellar was similar to Bire. Bire was 23, this something like that. I forgot now. Bire changing. Their history, their older vines, their cuvée concept makes a lot of difference, especially in the long term. That's why in that interview, I hope you will appreciate to watch it. I asked him about aging some wines because I see their potential, great potential. Yeah, very refined and noticeable complexity. It's changing quite a bit. Something more reminding of Riesling. The oily is also on the nose quite evident. And later on, the petroleum will come out. Josip from the winery told me clearly that. Yeah, great. Length and drying up, so perfect with the food. Great wine. Great. And even with the complexity, the body is still medium. It's not too much. Great wine. Just getting better. Not changing in other ways the impressions. Sabulum is a surprise, yes, because that was the one I did appreciate least in the summer, while now is more interesting. The nose is very captivating. Yeah, still there. All this citrusy, a bit of tropical, the herbal, the mineral. The sapidity, not marking much in any actually. Is more acidity and minerality. I remember probably when they are fresh, the salty is a bit more evident. Here you have a hint, thinking properly. Between all the others, also a bit of salty note. You have a bit more salty on this one. So possibly they have the vineyards really near the house, so near the beach, because it's the one having a bit more salty compared to the others. But it's a good body also, a bit more than the others, but still well dry and fresh, holding up. So much better than I recall from the summer. So it's a good surprise. Also, this is important to see. Drinking in different moments, you can revise a bit your impression, your opinion. So there is not absolute, and then every vintage is different because nature is nature. So very interesting. Is a good panorama of Lombarda's Grk, almost the best, missing one or two. There is a bright future, but 100 hectares, that's it. And they cannot develop more. So I hope you enjoyed. Like, subscribe, comment, please. Let me know also your impression if you tried any traveling there. Share with your wine friends. Help us to grow, and salute.